This Starbucks is the perfect example of really good design. Look at the size and the scale of the sign that hangs outside the shop. Then compare that to a sign like this. When you design around cars, you have to build signs at a very large scale. But when you design around people, you can build at the human scale. Human scale design is one of the factors that makes areas like this so pleasant to walk through. Walking through an area like this would be deeply unpleasant, and yet walking somewhere like this with all these human scale size signs would be very nice. Even a detail as small as signs makes an area more pleasant and walkable.
Why are black women more likely to have their femininity contested and still falsely perceived to be more masculine? Let's talk about it. So to understand the history of this, we have to go way back, because while myths were spread undermining the image of both black men and black women were doubly discredited. As early as the 16th century, early European explorers who had made their way to Africa would comment on the anatomical features of the populations they encountered. Their dramatized stories were seen as fact and informed some of the first European perceptions of African people. For example, to these imperialist travelers, the dark skin, wide lips, and noses of some indigenous populations resembled those of apes, so they began saying that Africans engaged in sex with them. This rhetoric that animalized African populations was also used to justify their enslavement. It classified them as other and paved the way for the dehumanization and sexual exploitation of black men and black women brought to the New World. In fact, colonial pseudo-scientific investigations even suggested that black people were subhuman and less evolved than white Europeans. Over time, though, this imperial discourse took on a more gendered tone, and comparisons started being made between African and European women. This was not done by accident, though. Rather, it was done in order to justify the exclusion of African women from the category of women altogether. The social hierarchies of the imperial enterprise placed black women at the bottom of the social scale, and so they suffered from a triple oppression. Oppression from the white man, the white woman, and the black man. But I've got much more to say, so stay tuned for part 2.
Name one thing in your industry or profession that the general public would be shocked to know.
So I'm a music therapist, and did you know that the schizophrenia diagnosis criteria actually changed during the civil rights movement and was used to invalidate black male activists? Prior to the civil rights era, schizophrenia was seen as largely a white, docile, harmless condition, mostly affecting white women and intellectuals. Starting in the 60s, schizophrenia started being described as a violent social condition, which was characterized by rage, aggression, and hostility, largely affecting black men. Black men were developing hostility and delusional anti-whiteness after being aligned with activist groups like Black Power, Black Panthers, and the Nation of Islam. Psychiatric treatment was required because these symptoms threatened black men's sanity as well as the social order of white America. This bias still affects us to this day. Studies in 2018 indicated that black men are 2 to 4 times more likely to be diagnosed with schizophrenia than their white counterparts.
Poor urban design can be seen in almost every city in the United States, and it has to do with not designing cities around people, but rather around cars. Because of this, it has led to many city downtowns that aren't very large and aren't very walkable. So in this video, I want to talk about the 5 worst designed cities in the United States. And pretty quickly, you're going to pick up on a general theme between these 5 cities. Number 5 is St. Louis, Missouri, which has 4 different highways that all intersect within the downtown area. Additionally, there are plenty of open lots, specifically parking lots, as well as many warehouses that go north and south from the downtown areas. There is only a very small portion of downtown that is actually walkable and is actually dense. Pretty quickly, once when you leave the downtown area, it becomes either urban blight or sprawl. At number 4 is Raleigh, North Carolina, which this picture just really speaks for itself. Now, although several blocks of downtown Raleigh are actually pretty nice, a majority of the city is just this, where it's just constant rail yards, junkyards, storage facilities, warehouses, etc. As a result, there is no density, hence no walkability, and so it incentivizes suburban sprawl. At number 3, we got Fort Worth, Texas, which has enormous potential to become a nice, dense, and vibrant city. However, that's killed the second when you realize that there's several highways that intersect in the downtown area, the fact of how there's many abandoned warehouses and many empty lots. What could easily be a gorgeous mixed-use downtown has been sacrificed for this, whatever this is. I pointed out on my Twitter last week of how low density Fort Worth is built, and the areas around downtown Fort Worth, which total to be about 12 square miles, have a combined population of about 40,000 people. If this downtown area was adequately built densely, then I pointed out that the population could be as high as 250,000 people. And number 2 is Phoenix, which, like the picture with Raleigh, this picture just speaks for itself. While you do have a very minute downtown area, as you can see right here, it is completely surrounded by plenty of empty lots and just by plenty of areas that nobody even lives. It's almost like one big buffer zone between this little downtown area and the suburbs, and it's just like this abyss. At number 1 is Detroit, which had many problems that went into its demise, one of which being urban blight and white flight. These areas that have been hollowed out by the highways were dense, walkable, mostly wealthy black neighborhoods in the 50s and then the 60s. However, as the power of the automobile took off in the 50s, people like Robert Moses decided to route through highways through these downtowns and push out people. So the general theme and the point is that these areas that surround the downtown areas are just an absolute abyss of empty lots of warehouses and whatnot. Through changing our ridiculous zoning codes and by building in these empty lots around the downtowns, we can build better cities.
These Dutch roundabouts are probably the best designed roundabouts in the world. Here we are zoomed out so you can see what the whole thing looks like. One of the first things you'll notice is how each mode of transport actually has their own dedicated path. Pedestrians have a nice wide crosswalk up here, cyclists have an uninterrupted bike path here, and cars have an area where cyclists and pedestrians are not allowed. Look at how well everything flows. Here we can see this car waiting for these pedestrians and cyclists to cross. As soon as they're out of the way, the car moves right on through. This is better for the car because they don't have to wait at a red light. It's also safer, more efficient, and faster. But the coolest thing about this is that because the cyclists and pedestrians always have right of way, it encourages people to ride their bike and walk. Because of this, it's better. I love this. This is just great design. It's fantastic.
Did you know that you can often tell if someone is harboring hidden racism, and there's a really easy way to find out? See, here's the thing. Some white people in American history were enslavers, and other white people, like John Brown or the white missionaries who were part of the first Memorial Day, were abolitionists. They fought to end slavery. So if someone claims that teaching about America's history of racism shames white kids, you need to ask them this question. Why do they think white kids will associate more with slave owner guilt than with abolitionist pride? It just might be that they're projecting their own hidden racism.
Today I want to talk about the suburbs and a concept known as the third place. Popularized by Ray Oldenburg, you probably already intuitively understand what this is. Your home here would be the first place, and then work would be your second place. But what is the third place, and why is it so difficult to come by in suburban development? This could be a third place, so could this, or this, or this. Put simply, it's any place that's not your work or your home. But the issue is if you live here surrounded by nothing but other private houses, and then get in your car and drive directly to the place that you work, there's not a whole lot of room to have third places. Euclidean zoning means that you can't legally build anything besides homes in areas like this. And that means that it's very difficult to put a third place within walking, biking, or transit distance of a place like this. If you've ever lived in a community like this, think about where your third place might be. If you had one, the odds are it probably wasn't very easy to access. Places for community to gather are actually very important, and suburban development often doesn't allow this to be easy and accessible.
I swear, bro, just let me build one more lane. I swear we're gonna fix traffic. Let's build one more lane. Just let me build one more lane. Just let me build one more lane. I swear, we're gonna fix traffic. Just one more lane and just make it bigger. Just make it bigger. We're gonna fix traffic. It's gonna fix traffic. It's gonna fix traffic. It's gonna fix traffic. Do you know what would fix traffic? Trains!
Hi there, what can I get you? Hello, female, she, her, lady, woman, gal. So, first of all, love Ella and their content. They're an incredible queer, non-binary, autistic creator who you should definitely go follow. But that video really made me think because, like, I work in a makeup counter. I'm a non-binary person. I will always have my pronoun pin on at work. Sometimes I wear these pronoun earrings. But basically, there was a straight guy in with his wife. And I think to compensate for the fact that he was just in a makeup counter, he was being really like, oh, I don't know anything about this, lad, beer, gross. And he made this joke at the expense of his wife and then tried to fist bump me. Like, it was the strangest thing. But it was, I think I just looked at him and I went, right. Which is, you know, it was quite funny on me. But anyway, but it made me realize, like, it doesn't matter how feminine I present. It doesn't matter how androgynous or even masculine I present. People will always see the facial hair, they'll hear the deep voice, and they'll go, ah, yes, penis having male, he, him, man. Which is like I'm literally indicating to you that that's not what I am. I'm 6'4". This is eye level for a lot of people. And I clock people acknowledging it and going straight back to calling me he. But, like, I can do all of this, and people will still choose to see me as male and actively reinforce it to me by saying, like, bro, man, dude, stuff like that, because it makes them more comfortable. And I think that's a mindset that we should be challenging more. And I wish that I could say that I would feel comfortable to correct people, but a lot of the time, especially in a working environment, I don't. Because I don't think that I would have the support behind me if I called someone out for it. Because it is disrespectful. Whether it's through ignorance or not, it is disrespectful. But I genuinely don't think I would have the support of people around me if I did correct someone. I think they would, you know, turn around and say, like, why are you being disrespectful to a customer for no reason? And I just think that's something that we should try and not do. Those are my thoughts. Have a nice day!
You're too slow!
The common response to this video is, this is why we need walkable cities and this is why we need better public transportation. And I 100% agree. Now, let's take it a step further. Walkable cities with great public transportation already exist. For me, living in North Jersey, I personally think of New York City, Montclair, New Jersey, Hoboken, New Jersey. The problem with these cities, they're so fucking expensive and so fucking gentrified. I would take a guess and say that a 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartment in any of those cities runs you like minimum $2,500 a month, if you're lucky, plus utilities. Now, cities that are a little less walkable around here but have equal public transportation but are definitely cheaper are cities like Passaic, Patterson, and Newark. But these cities were forgotten by the system, thus making them less desirable to renters. It's infuriating.
As your mayor, I am focused on these rising rents. The eviction moratorium is over, and 8.2 million Americans are behind on their rent control.
Somebody just say something.
Inflation is at a 40-year high. Some cities have had rents rise 30 to 40%. I know some of you might not mind, but... Yes! Woohoo! Down here, rent control. So it can only rise a certain percent every year. Well, that screws up this efficient machine we have called the housing market. Rising rent is a problem with the market. Rent control doesn't solve that underlying issue. Price controls reduce the incentive to supply a good, and since we have a 3.8 million home shortage, we need more suppliers of homes. If we make it less lucrative lucrative. it throws a wrench in this machine. We get fewer homes as it gets worse.
That super efficient market doesn't look so good to start with. It's like entirely wrenches. What are you talking about? Single unit housing only? No duplexes? No apartment buildings? It's practically illegal to build affordable housing. That's a wrench.
Oh yeah, I forgot about those.
So we can't add rent control because it'll screw up the market that's already screwed up. Because right now those wrenches are helping those guys. Like, they benefit from scarcity. So what is it? You want wrenches or you don't?
Where'd that guy go?
Bitch, I really look real fucking Puerto Rican right now. The Puerto Rican Day Parade is a day to celebrate our culture, history, impact, and strides against oppression. So why are we allowing the representatives of the oppression we are still enduring to be present in our spaces of radical and revolutionary joy? Capitalistic mongrels selling the island, and politicians who favor statehood, and the NYPD have no place in these celebrations other than to promote a false image of what our liberation looks like. We celebrate every day as the sacrifice of our ancestors so that we can not only call ourselves Puerto Rican, but we can know what it means to be a Puerto Rican. A capitalist does not sacrifice, they sell out. A politician can't help, they have to abide by the law. Police officers sold their soul trying to create change that can only be done if they take off their uniforms and denounce it. You want your nephew who's in the NYPD to march with you. No, babes, you're done. Want to talk about AOC gonna do this? What's she gonna do? If she don't go to Puerto Rico with a gun in her hand, ready to kick the United States out, ain't nothing gonna happen. She been yelling at all these white people for how many years, and all they do is call her a bitch. But long story short, I don't want to see you motherfuckers on my day of celebration.
Elon Musk is so incredibly smart. He thinks of stuff nobody else has ever thought about, like Hyperloop. This is amazing. There's always city traffic everywhere and it slows people down. So he did something original. Put transportation underground. Take electric vehicles and set them up underground so that people can move around and avoid the city traffic. The only way Elon Musk could possibly improve this, and I'll bet he's the first person to think about this, maybe make the Tesla car in the underground Hyperloop, make it bigger, the size of a bus, and maybe connect a couple of buses together so that lots of people could move underground at the same time. And you could add futuristic Star Trek-like sliding doors on these buses so that people could kind of get in and out, which would be amazing. And you could move more people. Then the other problem is the battery. We all know the battery is a big problem with the Tesla. So we could find a way to remove it if you could directly connect this underground Tesla bus to some sort of rail, like a third rail. It could go faster, cost less, and you wouldn't have to charge it. I don't know. Only Elon could do something like this.
If the train doesn't make a profit, why should we keep it? If the train isn't making money, I don't see why we need to keep it. Oh, I guess you're right. Let's get rid of the other thing that doesn't make any profit at all. I guess we have to get rid of them.
Shit like this brings the movement down. Everyone's a feminist until there is a spider around.
Things I wish that there were more of. Vertical gardens in cities. I mean, just look at how much space they saved. Spaces designed for people instead of cars. Look at the difference from when this was a road here to it now. That's awesome. Alternatives to grass lawns. Doesn't even have to be all moss, can be just a bunch of native pollinator-friendly plants. Upcycled bottle walls. I mean, come on, look at that lighting, that's cool. Tree-lined streets, fruit trees in public spaces, and waste bins, not just in parks, but in neighborhoods too. I feel like if I had more bins in my neighborhood, there would be a lot less dog waste on the floor.
So over the last couple weeks, I have been repeatedly reminded that a lot of my fellow leftists have an idea of revolution which is still primarily shaped by the way it is portrayed in popular media, which almost exclusively focuses on the fireworks aspects of revolution. And because of this, they think that a leftist revolution would also be primarily driven by violence. The problem with this is that in reality, capitalism has a limitless ability to tolerate violence. It expects it. It was founded upon it, and we cannot meaningfully challenge it solely by introducing more violence. As leftists, our goals are systemic in nature, and as such, our challenge to capitalism must also be systemic. To be clear, I am not trying to sell you liberal nonsense about how violence is never the answer. When it comes to oppressed people resisting their oppressors, violence is almost always an acceptable answer, and it would almost certainly have a part in a viable leftist revolution. But if we are doing it right, the source of that violence will be the ruling class when they realize that we pose a credible systemic threat to their power. And you can see this looking throughout history at leftist revolutions. The ones that have been able to get a foothold for any significant period of time have been the ones that have built this kind of power before the fireworks start. This is why when J. Edgar Hoover said that the BPP were the greatest threat to to the security of the US, he was not talking about the fact that they open carried. He was talking about their free breakfast and medical clinic programs. A successful leftist revolution does not look like the end of Fight Club, where we watch the tall capitalist buildings crumble and suddenly we've arrived at communism. And I need y'all to understand this, because introducing violence before the systemic work is viable only aids right-wingers and fascists, who are able to utilize violence much more effectively than we are as leftists, because they don't want systemic change. Capitalism suits them just fine, but what they do want is to normalize open violence against anyone who doesn't fit into their dominant socio-ethnic group. For them, violence is both a means and an end. This is a big part of why regime destabilization is such an effective tactic for the CIA, because they know that when things are destabilized, all they have to do is throw a little bit of funding at the right-wing group of their choice, and that group will be able to seize power. If you have been envisioning a revolution rooted primarily in violence rather than one rooted in building solidarity and improving people's material conditions, then you have not been envisioning a viable leftist revolution. You have been envisioning a revenge fantasy against capitalism. And I get that, I really do. But if we actually want lasting systemic change and to avoid sliding deeper into fascism, we need to be strategic and realistic about how we do that.
This is a work of art. This is bullshit. This is a work of art. This is bullshit. This is a work of art. But this is bullshit.
This is how a middle-class suburb is like in Mexico. No mandatory setbacks, with small sidewalks, but still walkable. Detached houses are not common. The garage takes almost all the property's front side. This type of suburb has a smaller carbon footprint than a suburb in
Don't be deceived by the iced coffee. This here is a heterosexual, Reese. Don't be confused by the middle school outfit. This is in fact a non-binary.
Don't be confused by the bad boy outfit. This is in fact a twink.
And today we present to you what homophobes think that gay people do during Pride Month. Gender isn't real, listen to folk music! Take off your binder, your titties need to breathe! I have an agenda, and it's scary.
Hey man, I wish they'd stop killing us.
Yeah. Satan here to make you queer.
I wish my gender were organic.
In them shits. So, I gotta say something. Cause, I'm Tony Sneezy, I gotta say something. Feel me? I say, yeah. I'm really sick and tired of seeing them kids. What the fuck are those, bitch? Oh my shit. Throw them shits in the fucking garbage. Shits is fucking fire. Oh shit, I lied, bitch. What the fuck are these, bitch? You fucking dumb, bitch. You thought there was one, you fucking dumb, bitch. Throw them shits in the fucking garbage.
You have a city with so much history like Long Beach. You have a lot of old buildings. These buildings were built before modern zoning, and they don't have a lot of the features that are required now today. For example, these homes, they're small, they're compact, they are, 450 to 500 square feet, located all in a row like this, don't even have street frontage. Just this sidewalk. There are also more typical homes on this row. Here's a home with a front yard, a stoop, backyard on the side there. City zoning standards add things like setback requirements, parking requirements, lot coverage requirements that would make this place impossible to build today. But these are the kinds of homes that we have to be able to build if we want to solve our housing affordability crisis.
this all gon' fuck cause I got cash. And I fucked her in no Uber, we didn't.
U.S. Federal Reserve says its goal is to get wages down. I genuinely need y'all to understand that, like, when capitalists say stuff like this, it's not because they're stupid or because they're ignorant. It's because they're very, very cognizant of what is actually the problem, and they just want to make your life worse. Employers are having difficulties filling job openings, and wages are rising at the fastest pace in many years. Fucking where? Also go on to say that workers need to be disciplined by the labor market, as if we're not literally in the worst time to be a worker since the 1930s. This is the culmination of 40 years of privatization and deregulation, where the government is now actively encouraging corporations to devalue labor at a time when everything else is costing more. They want you to starve and die.
Would you prefer a street like this or going down one that looks like this? Well, these ones can actually really benefit your community. Let's talk about it. First off, businesses that lie on treescape street earn a 12% higher income stream, which can be game-changing for Main Street businesses. They are also great weather blocking agents, and they bring cooler temps, making them a lot more pedestrian friendly. And trees that cover asphalt give it a 40 to 60% higher lifespan, saving cities a lot of money over time.
Quaysha, where will you be traveling this summer? New Lagos, how exciting. I know the bright lights of the city will be exciting to see. Madison, McKinley, you're being disruptive. No, it was definitely you two. Yes, your voice carries across the classroom and you're disrupting the other students who are trying to learn. Madison, where are you traveling this summer? Oh, you're not going on a vacation. Okay. McKinley, how about you? London? What is that? It's a city in Europe? Do you mean a marketplace? McKinley, in Europe they don't have cities. They have marketplaces where the natives go and trade goods and services that they can bring back to their village. Exactly, Jamal. They barter. I'm sure it will be exciting to visit such an exotic country. And maybe it will help you to feel more grateful for all of the things your parents gave you by moving here.
Lately, USA is getting scarier. Half of the Americans I see all hate America. They hate the cops doing their best to take care of us and kneel for the flag and salt the soldiers that we're burying. I'm tired of the pissing and complaining. Why you living in America if all you do is hate it? You think it's brave to take a stand against the nation? Real bravery is dying for the right so you can say it. Dear America, what happened to Americans? Apparently no one's aware or cares that it's embarrassing.
Yes! Do you not know about redlining, bro? Yes.
American cities were designed to segregate people. I knew our education system was bad, but like, we were failing people. If you do not know about this,